the Mishnah starts with discussing what the Kohen Gadol had to do in order to get the Ketores, the incense, into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So the Mishnah starts like this. They take out to him, the kaf is a ladle, and the machta is the shovel. And the Gemara will explain further, but chofan melei chofnav v'nasan l'teich hakaf. So he takes a handful and he of ketores, and he puts it into the shovel. Hagodai lefi godloi, v'hakatan lefi kotloi. That if it was a big Kohen Gadol, when he would take the handful, it would be larger. There was more content, and if it was a smaller Kohen Gadol, it would be less. Now, large or small could also mean the hands, not necessarily the person, but the hands could have been larger or smaller. And that's actually the measurement. So there was no specific measurement for the amount of incense, the ketores that was taken into the Kodesh Kadoshim. The measurement was whatever fit into his hand. And thereafter, notal samachta biminoi, he takes the shovel, he takes in his right, and he takes the ladle in his left. And that's how he goes into Kodesh Kadoshim. The Gemara is going to explain what did he have in the shovel and what did he have in the spoon. All right. You've got Machta Tanale. So the Gemara right away asks the question. We learned in the previous Mishnah that he takes the shovel and he goes to the top of the Mizbeach. Then he moves around the coals, and he takes from the coals that are in the inner part of the bunch of coals, the mountain of coals, and he comes down. So if we already said Notal Samachta that he takes the shovel, why does it say Hotzilu Akaf Samachta? What does it mean that they took it out? He already had it in his hands. He already brought it. It doesn't make any sense. So the Gemara says, Hasa Machta de Gecholim, V'hacha Machta de Ketores. So he says the previous Mishnah was talking about that he would go up to the Mizbeach with his shovel for the coals, to bring the coals. But here we're talking about a shovel of the Ketores. Tanya, Kaf Rekan, we learned in a Brisa, Etzila Kaf Rekan Melishkas Akelim, Machta Gedusha Ketores Melishkas Beis Achtinas. So once he came down from the Mizbeach, they took out a shovel from the section of the kelim, of the utensils, and they took out the cup. They took out the ladle from the lishkas kelim, and the shovel. It was a shovel that was overflowing with ketores from lishkas beisaftinas, from the place of where the ketores was stored, which is called the section, the chamber of the house of Aftinas. So now we understand that when the Mishnah is talking about Hotzilas Akaf Samachta, it's talking about the Kaf Machta of the ketores, not the Kaf Machta of the Gecholim, of the coals. He scoops up as much as his two handfuls, and from there he puts it into the ladle. The larger or the smaller, that is the measurements. So the Gemara says, why do you need to bring a ladle into the Kodesh Kadoshim? Because it says here he scoops the ketores and he puts it into the ladle. So the Gemara says, it says that he has to scoop up a full amount of his handful, and he brings. And the answer is, if he has to do that, mishum the law, so why does it say that that a ladle has to be brought if he himself has to bring it? So the Gemara answers, mishum the law efshar. It's not possible. It's not physically possible that he's going to bring two handfuls. If his hands are occupied with the kteris, how is he going to bring in the coals? So the Gemara says like this: how should he do it? Should he bring in the shovel of coals and then come in and bring in the two? His two hands are busy. He's going to bring the scoopful of his two hand breadths of kteris. The Gemara, the Torah says, "Hava achas amar Rachmana, v'lo shnei avodos." It says, "Vehivi," he brings. It doesn't say he brings and he brings. It has to be very, very specific. So you're not allowed to come in to the Kodesh HaKadoshim twice. So then the Gemara gives another possible solution. Nishkele lektoris v'choflav, and v'nachte lamachta alei v'leu, and he puts the kteris on top of it. He puts the kteris in his hands, and he puts the shovel with the coals on top of his hands in a way that it's covered, that he's like holding it on his arms and his hands. So the Gemara says, okay, so how's this going to go? Once he comes into Kodesh Kodashim, how's he supposed to move the shovel of coals off his hands, off his hands filled with kteris? Should he grab the shovel full of coals? I don't know how anybody could do this, but this is incredible. Should he grab the shovel full of coals, put it in his teeth, and while he's with his hands filled with kteris, he puts the shovel of coals on the floor? The Gemara says, if in front of a king, it would be so disrespectful to grab any type of utensil with your teeth and then put it down on the floor, and then while your hands are cupped and full with kteris, it's disrespectful. Therefore, it's not possible that you have your hands filled with kteris, two hands, and you're also holding a shovel full of hot coals. The cave in the loyafshar, and since it's not possible, what was decided? That was decided that it would be done just like it was done by the Nisim. The Nisim, when they brought kafachas, and they also brought the shovel. The one hand they used it to carry the coals, and one hand they used to bring the spoon, the ladle of kteris. Okay, so the Gemara continues, quoting the Mishnah. He takes the shovel of coals in his right, and he takes the incense, the ladle of incense, in his left. Right away, the Gemara is kind of wondering. He uses a terminology. Yitziva bara, v'giyora b'shmei shmaya. According to this, the citizen, the Yitziva is, I guess maybe the word founded, or I guess it's in Aramaic. So the citizen is on the earth, and the resident alien is the one that goes up into the heaven, like he's giving respect. The question is, if the kteris is the main thing, it should be held in his right hand. Why is it that the kteris is being held in his left hand? So the Gemara answers very practically. It says, the fact is that your right hand is a stronger hand, and the shovel of coals is going to be very heavy. So you want to carry the coals in your right hand, and the kteris, which is a smaller amount, you carry in your left hand. And the Gemara says, but in reality, afilu bizman sheshneim shavim, you also do that. What happens if the coals and the kteris are equal weight? Still, you carry the coals on your right and the kteris on the left, which is quite interesting. And the Gemara says that it actually happened, that they were equal. Uchemaise, they're Bishmal ben Kimchis. It's like the story of Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchis, who was a Kohen Gadol. So what's the story of Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchis? So the Gemara says, so if it's equal, why do you have to take it in the right, the coals, and the incense, the keteris on the left? You should be the opposite. So the Gemara answers, no, it's not because of the weight, it's because of a different reason. Zu chama, zu tzenenes. This one, the shovel of coal is hot, and there's a lot of danger that if it spills or on his feet, or he could scald himself. So therefore, you take it in the right, so you could have better control of the hot coals, and you could go ahead and bring it in. So now the Gemara moves on to what they mentioned about Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchis. Amar Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchis, Shahei Chayfen Arbes Kamim Mem Lo Chafcha. He used to take with his two hands. He used to scoop up, because his hands were very big. They used to scoop up 4 kabim in between his hands, which is a very, very large amount. It would be equal to the 4 kabim approximately that would come on the coals. So it actually happened that the weight was equal. And when they asked him, how is it possible that you have such big hands? How is it possible? Apparently he was of larger size. He would say, Kol anashim zerzu v'zered ima alei lagag. So I looked in what is the Gemara itself is going to say what zerzu v'zered is. But apparently, it's explained that his mother ate a certain grain while she was pregnant and carrying him, and that certain grain was very healthy, and it improved the child, the baby in the stomach, and therefore he was of larger size. Another explanation was that she actually grew the grain, and she took care of the grain because she knew she was going to eat it while she was pregnant. That she took care of the grain, and the grain of the other people would reach maybe their a certain height, maybe the chest or whatever. But the grain of his mother reached all the way up to the roof, because she took care of it so much, and she cared for it. She cared for her children, that grain was of incredible quality. And of course, the children came also very high, signifying up to the roof. It continues. There's those who say that he didn't say there's a vizered, but it was a different type of a grain or a cereal that she ate, and that was the one that made him so large and of, I guess, of larger sizes, because obviously the Gemara refers to him as the largest of the Arba Kavim. So what does he say? And this, what he said, goes according to the Rabba Bar Yonasan. The Amar Rabba Bar Yonasan, Amar Rabbi Yechiel. Our son, this type of grain, this type of cereal, is beautiful, is good. It helps to the choyle, if somebody, God forbid, is sick. Some say that it's also good for the semen, that it makes it a better quality. So the Rababo Rame, Rababo asked a question. It says in the pasuk, and one pasuk it says that you gave me strength for the battle, and then the other pasuk it says that Tazreini Chayla Milchama, and the other pasuk says you give me Tazreini with an aleph. One says without an aleph, and one says with an aleph. So which one is it? It gives me strength to the battle. So he answers that David HaMelech says to the Kosh Baruch Hu, Omar David Lifnei Kosh Baruch Hu, Rebbeinu Shalom Zireisani Ve'Zirzartani. You Hashem, you blessed blessed me in this world, and you gave me the strength. You girded me, the translation says, and gave me the strength. So that's why there's the two psukim, that one has to do with strength, and I guess one has to do with that the strength, the sperm and the strength was already strong while he was in his mother's stomach. Amr Allah Rabbi Shalom Kimchis, Pamacha Siper Dvarim Im Arvi Echad Bashuk. One time he was, I guess I missed it maybe before. Why is it that they called him Rabbi Shmuel ben Kimchis, the son of Kimchis, is his mother? Normally you would say Rabbi Shmuel, or if you want to mention, you mention his father. So that's when the Gemara starts to explain that his mother was of such great nature and what she did for her children. And now they're going to continue about the honor that the mother received in her lifetime. One time he was in the market and he was speaking to a certain Arvi, an Arab. And a drop of spit, saliva, while he was speaking, came onto his clothing. And he was so strict. And his brother, Yeshevav, was, because he could not do the service because he was tameh. He considered himself tameh from the saliva of the spit. So his brother Yeshevav went in the position of Kohen Gadol. And the mother Kimchis merited to see two of her children be in Kohen Gadol in one day, which is such a great honor. Now there's another time that they spoke about him. Obviously, he was very famous. One time he went and spoke to a certain master in the market, and again, and saliva went on him. Apparently, I think the RV was a non-Jewish, and here it's talking of somebody who's Jewish. Maybe in the other area, it might explain that this was more of an Amma Aretz, so there was worry that he was Tameh. V'nichnas Yosef Achi v'Shimish. And here, before it says Yesheva, and here it says that Yosef, his brother, became V'Shimish Tachtav, and he became the Kohen Gadol. And the mother merited to see two Kohen Gadols in one day. So obviously, this lady merited to great things. It was taught in the Brisa. Look how much effort and energy has been put into this mother. So Kimchis had seven children. Sorry, and all of them had the merit and the privilege to serve as the position of Kohen Gadol. The rabbis came to her and said, what did you do that you merited to have all your children Kohen Gedolim? Which is incredible. And you could say Kohenim Gedolim. It says in the Torah, "Atem Tili Malachas Kohenim v'Goy Kadosh." So all of the nation is Kohenim. So obviously, it's talking about parents. It's talking about how a mother raises her children, and how the mother merits to have her children follow in the path of Torah and Mitzvah. So she told them, "Amar lahem mi'amai lo rokas basi kalesari." In all my days of my life, the beams of my house, some say the roof, some say the house, never saw the braids of her hair, which means she was always very tznius, even inside her house, even inside with her family. So she was always very tznius. Amullah, they told her, Harbe asuchen v'lo hi'ilu. Many people did this, but they did not accomplish the same exact thing that you accomplished. So obviously, what you're saying is very true and it's very humbling. But you also need, I guess the Gemara wants to tell you that there's such a thing as siyata d'shmaya. You also need to have that siyata d'shmaya to make sure that you merited to have 7 children that are all Kohanim Gedolim. If anybody has any questions, any mistakes, please jump in. Don't be shy. Especially Avram Nassim. Kohen Gadol. Tana Rabbanan bekumsai shelo yaseh midah v'kaimet. Now it's talking about the separation of a kaimet from a mincha. If somebody brings a mincha, he has to take a kaimet. A kaimet apparently is 3 fingers and fill them up in between. The Gemara actually starts to go into details what the kaimet is and what's the chafina with 2 hands and the kaimetz with 1 hand. So the the Brisa says that you don't make a measurement. It's not a set measurement. It has to do with the size of the hand of the kohen. Depending on the size of the hand of the kohen, that's when you would do the kmitza. And that's the size of the kmitza. If they ask the question, could when you cup the ketores, the kohen gadol takes it in his 2 hands, is there a measurement? Could you do that? So the Gemara says, "Hasamhu lichsi bekumtzoy with a base. Doesn't say the word bechafnav over there. It says bekumtzoy. So that's coming to teach us that there's no measurements. It's just whatever fits into the 3 fingers. That's what comes up. That's the measurement. But here, when it says when he takes it in his 2 hands and he cups it, doesn't say bechafnav. It just says chafnav. Elam lo chafnav teres samidaka. So maybe you could go ahead and put a measurement. Or you could say that we learn it from the full meloi mikumsoy, just like it says here. It also says in the kumsoy, it also says that you take the miloi, the full amount. So therefore, you have to say no. It's not. There is no measurement. Whatever comes in to your hand, that's what comes in. So we have a question. The Gemara says, Toshma. Let's see if we can get a proof from a Mishnah. What did our Mishnah say? That it doesn't make a difference if he was large or if he was small, if the hand was large, if the hand was small. That is the measurement. The measurement is whatever the Kohen scoops up based on his hand size. So the Gemara says, my love, doesn't that mean the Gemara says no. Maybe what it means that maybe what it means, since it just said it and didn't give any explanation, maybe it means that he could actually go ahead and make a measurement to it. The Gemara says, Loi, you can't say that. This is what the Mishnah says. So this is that the Kohen Gadol would go ahead and do a second chafina in the Kodesh Kodashim. So the Gemara right away is going to explain it because we didn't. I guess there wasn't a itemization that there was 2 chafinas. So Shmas Mineh, we learn from this choifen, v'choizer v'choifen, that he has to go ahead and cup in between his hands the measurements. Then he takes the measurements that he put in his hands and he puts it into the ladle. And he takes it in his left hand. And in the Kodesh Kodashim, he goes ahead and takes whatever he had in the ladle and puts it back into his two, and he cups it back in his two hands, and then he puts it on top of the coals. Later on, the Gemara is going to say that this is one of the most difficult avodas in the Mikdash, and I'll read a little bit the Gemara further ahead, which was it's unbelievable how difficult it was. Dilma, but maybe if it says that maybe if we see that you go ahead and you could do a second chafina, Dilma shima tasas nida oiset. Maybe what the Mishnah means that if he wants to make a measurement of chafina, he could make one. Or you could say that what it means, ina it also means maybe that the second chafina you should not have any of the teres that was on the ladle missing. So when you take it from the ladle and you put it back into your hands in the kodesh kadoshim, you want to make sure nothing got stuck, nothing in the ladle. You want to make sure nothing fell on the floor. Maybe that's what it means. In reality, the Gemara does not use the word teku, but it does not resolve this question. It leaves it as a question. Now the Gemara goes to say like this. We learned in the Brayso, if a person takes a scoop with his three fingers to make the kaimetz yachol mevurat, you would think that it should be like overflowing. You should make clear that it should be just the kaimetz and not overflowing. If that's the case, that you're saying that it has to be the full hand, maybe he doesn't have to have the hands completely full, closed. He just has to have enough of the silus in the tips of his fingers, and whatever is in the tips of the fingers would be considered a kaimetz. It has to be a full kaimetz. A full kaimetz refers to all three fingers. Okay, the kamse inchi, like people go. Now the Gemara says, "Can it come to inchi haketza?" How does it that you scoop the kaimetz like normal people, like regular people? What does that mean? Haketza. How does he do the kaimetz? He closes all three middle fingers on the palm of his hand, and he scoops up whatever they hold. So he puts it down and scoops it up, and that's what it is. In the mincha, that is deep fried or just fried, but it's kind of moving in the oil. Both of them are an oil offering. It's moichek begudloi milamala, but it's moichek milamata. You use the thumb and the lower finger to make sure that there's no extra teres, and it's only the teres that's within the three fingers. Avam Nosson, does that sound a little familiar? There you go.
Now the
Gemara makes the Gemara moving with his thumb and his little finger for this kaimetz was one of the harder works in the Mikdash. Why? Because the mincha that was deep fried was already, by the time it came out, it was brittle and sharp. And you had to make sure that when you go ahead and wipe off the pieces that were perturbing, that were sticking out, that you didn't take out from what you already had in your hand. Then you're removing. Sometimes you take a piece and the whole piece falls out. You have to make sure to break the pieces that are sticking out, that were pointy, and you don't go ahead and take out from what's inside. You only break what's sticking outside. That's a very hard avodah. So the Gemara right away says, Zuhi v'suloi. Is this it? And there's nothing else? That's hard. Va'ika melika was very difficult. The way they shechted a bird with a nail was a very difficult method. And Vehaika Chafina, there's also Chafina. So Chafina is what what the Kohen Gadol would go ahead and take the Ketores the second time. The second time he would take it, that's what he would do, and it was very, 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 very difficult because he has the coals on the floor, and now he has a ladle of Ketores that he has to put back into his hand. So if you give me the pencil for a second, he would have to take this ladle and slowly move it up in between his arms and then move it down. Some people say that he would have to hold the ladle with his teeth in order to perfectly go ahead and start pouring the ladle and shaking the ladle into his hands. So his hands become cupped again and filled with the terrace that he put into the ladle. And make sure that none of it falls and make sure that it all comes out of the ladle and it becomes full. So then he can go and put it on the coals that are on the floor in the Beis Hamikdash, and that was a very difficult avodah. So the Gemara says, rewrite what this Brisa says. It says, Elozohi ma'avodas kosher v'mikdash. This is one of the difficult avodas in the Mikdash. Amar Rabbi Yochanan asked a question. Rabbi Yochanan says, "By Rabbi Yeshua ben Uzzah." Rabbi Yeshua ben Uzzah, I guess in the academy, or he says in his name, asked this question. Bein habenayim sham lo ykum tzeimahu. In between the fingers, so you have three fingers, you have two cracks in between the fingers, so two cracks. What happens if the mincha in between these two fingers, some of the mincha comes in between them? Amar Papa says, the gavoy lo tibayla. If the mincha already perturbed outside that crack of the two fingers, that's not a question. Obviously, that's I'm sorry. The gavoy means that if on the inside. Yeah, go ahead. The gavoy is on the inside. So if the soilus was on the inside and between the cracks of his fingers, which means on the inside part, it's not there's no doubt that that's part of the kaimis. The broi, if it's outside of his fingers on top, also it's not a question. The vada shiraim, it's definitely shiraim. It's not part of the beni. What it's asking you is what happens is if it came and literally in the middle part of the finger in between, and now we have this kaimitz in there. What is it called? Is it part of the kaimitz or is it shiraim? Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Hada Pashte Rabbi Yeshua ben Uzzah. Then, after he asked the question, he also gave the answer. I love the answer. In between the fingers, right in the middle, not below, not above. It's a doubt. That's a great answer. We don't know what the answer is. It's a suffix. So the Gemara says, okay, so it's a suffix, but Tzef goes sof at the end. Hey, Chavid, how is he going to do it? What does the Kohen actually do? Amar Rabbi Chanina, Maktir Kaimetz L'chudei Tchila, V'hadar Ben Abinai. If he sees that he has a little bit in the middle of his fingers, so I guess he keeps his fingers closed. When he opens his fingers, he keeps them closed so that that mincha those grains, the parts of the mincha, stay in his fingers. And then after he gave the koimetz into the mizbeach, then he opens his fingers and he puts the whatever is left over in between his fingers. Why? Why does it have to be like that? If you say that he lets the mincha that's between his fingers first to burn first, Dilma shiraim means. Lahu shiraim shechasu v'hava lahu shiraim shechasu be'kvita. So there's a special halacha in Koimet, and anybody could jump in to help me. Okay, sorry. I don't know who's.
You can mute everyone.
I can't. I don't know how to mute everybody.
Yes, it took me half an hour to put it on.
All right. There's a way there that
How do I mute?
knows it.
No, I have to be the host, and I need a 6-digit key. Okay. There's a special halacha in the mincha that after you give the koimetz, after you give the koimetz and after you give the shiraim, you could eat the rest of the mincha. But if you gave already shiraim twice, then you can't eat the mincha. So if we're going to say that we first give the beina benaim first, then that becomes the mincha. And then when he actually gives the mincha, that becomes the shiraim. So then that's going to make that the kohanim cannot eat any of the leftover of the mincha. So the Gemara says, Yachi, also here, if you are not sure if you burn the koimetz, ikir kan, kol shemimenu leishim harev b'al. If you already did a double, if you gave the koimetz, the beina benaim first, and then you did the koimetz, then the rest of the mincha, of the shiraim, cannot be burned. You can only burn one shiraim. You can't burn 2 shiraim. So therefore, that you have to first burn the koimetz, and then the beina benaim could be burnt after. So Amar Yehuda Bereid Shimon Pazi, he has a different answer. The maktile l'shum eitzim, when he puts in the beina benaim, the in between his fingers, the leftover of the mincha, he hasn't the intention that he's putting in the mizbeach like it's a piece of wood. You can't bring it to a satisfying aroma, which means to sacrifice to Hashem. But you put it on the mizbeach like wood, and you're allowed to do it. So he says, Rabbana says that it doesn't. That you can't do it for wood. So then what would be the case? And I guess this is the reason Rabbi Liebensberger asked me to read this Gemara. This is I get a little piece. Amar Avari the Kmitza Shamne. And this is where I was asking Avram Nassan if he's ever done a Kmitza. Because according to Rav Mari, the only one who did Kmitza in the Beis Hamikdash were fat Kohanim. Because when they were fat, there was no space, there was no crack in between their fingers. Their fingers were so fat that there was no space between their fingers. Where's Avram Nassan? And they could not.
My video is not working. I can't say I ever heard this one before, but
that's right. And I guess I got the.
I was going to tell you before that, for whatever it's worth, when I first started coming to Daf Yomi 3 years ago, this is the sugya we were learning in Marzvachim about how the kohen does kmitza.
But it never mentioned that there had to be a fast guy.
But I don't remember ever hearing this idea that bigger is better.
Well, in this case, it just means that the fingers would not trap in the middle, in the cracks between the fingers, would not trap any questionable kmitza. The Gemara says, "Hasha the asif lahachi." Answer, you could also come to Shani. Why does Rabbi Lezer have to come to his whole limud that you could for the sake of wood? Why don't we just say like Rabbi Lezer that it also had to be the fat people? Okay. Now there's a this is in order to remember the next sugyas of the Gemara gives you a sign, different signs to remember. Rav Papa asks, what happens between? So before we're talking about kmitza, what happens to the mincha, to the flour, or to the mincha of machvas? What happens if it gets stuck in between his fingers? But here he's asking what happens to the ketores that gets stuck in between the fingers. So the Gemara says, "My kamibalei, igamer meloi meloi mehasam." If you learn meloi meloi from kaimet, I know achodi the same thing, same questions, same answers, same possibilities that we just went through. So the Gemara says, "No, this is what Rav Papa is asking." So he's gonna actually do. I think that this is a chefza and gavra. He's gonna say like this: when it says "L'chafna v'hivi," he fills up his he cups his two hands and he brings. So that means v'haika, and whatever he brought in is included. And that also includes the ketores that's in between his fingers. Oy Dilma. Or we say, no, it's not whatever he brought. It's velokach v'hivi beinen. We have to say that what he specifically took and brought. So took maybe doesn't mean in between the fingers, since there's a doubt on in between the fingers. So do we say that it goes on the person of what he brings? The end of the day, he brought in 100 grams, so he goes ahead. Even the amount that's in between the fingers is 100 grams, so he goes ahead and he puts the 100 grams. Or you say it's velokach. It's not no matter what he brought. It's what he was supposed to take, and what he was supposed to take is only what is between his hands, not in between his fingers. And therefore, what's in between the fingers is still a question. The Gemara says, Teiku. We don't know the answer to it. Not yet. Amar Papa Pshita Li Maloi Kumsoy Kedekansainch. It's simple to me that when you take a koimetz, you do it like normal people do. And what do normal people do? They have their hands down and they push their hand down into the food, and then they scoop it with their three fingers and they pick it up. Rafapa asked, what if he only scooped it up with the tips of his fingers and not his full hand, and like he didn't put his hand all the way down, he started with his fingers already down, as opposed to having the whole hand down and then scooping it up. Or milamata lamala, or instead of going up to down, he went like this and scooped it up. He put his hand down and scooped it up. Or if it's minatzadim, or he went like this instead of just going straight down. The Gemara says teiku. We don't know the answer, not yet. We're almost done. Okay, we'll do one more. Amar Papa Pshita Li Melechafna Kedechafna Yitri. Papa says the same thing when you cup for the ketores with two hands. It's the way people do it. where you put your hands down. Or so what if he focused on the tips of his fingers and then he brought it in? Instead of going down, he went from the side and picked it up. Or minatad. Or he just started them when they were far away from each other, and then he slowly put them together instead of bringing it down with his two hands together. Gemara says Teiku. There's no answer yet, and we're waiting to hear the answer. Thank you, guys. Any
Thank you.
questions?
No, thank you. Very nice. Have a great day.
Shkoyach. Have a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Atzlacha
Thank you.
today.